Hello and welcome to the latest lockdown series interview, and I'm delighted to be joined by Ballinderry Derry and now Kilcoo coach Conleith Gilligan. Conleith, thanks very much for accepting the invite and coming on tonight.
No problem at all, John. No, absolutely no problem. Delighted.
Good. And I suppose it's great that you're on because we just got word of the Down CCC proposals for the new layout of the 2020 season. What's your initial thoughts on it?
Well, again, look, just as we were coming on, sort of the news just came through to me as well. So I don't actually have all the detail on it, to be honest. But look, it was the sort of thing that it was going to have to be brief. It was going to have to be done quickly, and it's a very small window. And look, clubs are probably going to have to run with it. It's probably not fair on players at the heel of the hunt, but it is what it is. Everybody's just that delighted to have a bit of football back and have something to look forward to, that they're just going to suck it and see, I suppose.
Yeah, just for anyone who's watching and doesn't understand, the brief outline that I took from it is Division 1 and 2 is into two groups of 5. In the league, there's no promotion, there's no relegation. There is also, there will be a league winner. The winners of Group 1 and Group 2 will play each other to see who wins the league. There will be 3 games played in the league prior to championship. The championships then run off as per usual with the backdoor system and play right up until the quarter-final stage. And then there's 2 league games after the championship without the county players. So I suppose they're just trying to get the participation in the league and have the championship as usual. I suppose as long as everyone's safe and well and we're back playing some sort of football and people get participation as well, kind of, like, you know, even for routine for fellas, it's very important.
Yeah, look, that's about as much as anybody can ask for. The fixtures committees in these situations with the time, like, nobody would envy them. Like, it's easy to criticise the people doing these jobs, and everybody has got a bright idea, and it's always based on their own interest. But I suppose those people in committees are taking the wider view of what's good for the majority. And look, there will be people that won't suit, and there will be counties that'll have it better than others. But this is unprecedented times, and I think it's a case that to get the participation up in league games and to give teams a chance to get prepared for a championship, and once you get a league game around, it'll just be ding dong as normally is.
And obviously, you're coming in with Mickey Moran last year, kind of into the Kilcoo setup. It sent shockwaves throughout the county, really, whenever you were appointed. How exactly did it come about?
Well, it was as much a shock to me as anybody, I'll be honest. Me and Mickey and Paul had been involved in a wee under-12 coaching thing that Derry were running. So basically, any under-12 from any club in Derry could go every third Saturday to Owen Beg and get coaching. So basically, there was obviously me and Mickey and Paul Devlin together, Adrian McGuckin, Barry Dillon, Paul McIver, you know, just a host of coaches in Derry that agreed to get involved in it. So this run for probably half a year, and just by chance, me and Mickey and Paul were grouped together. So basically, what happened was that all the kids had 4 different sets of coaches doing 4 different things, you know, and they moved every 20 minutes, and that's how it worked out. Like, I obviously knew Mickey from when he managed Derry, and I played under Mickey, and then I knew Paul just because he was local, and we knew each other from just knocking about. So we got on very well within that, and it was great. And just Mickey obviously was approached by Kilcoo and had asked me and Paul to come with them, and that was it. So it was as big a shock to us, I suppose, as anybody. But I suppose the chance to work with Mickey and the chance to work with Kilcoo at that stage, you know, they'd lost the Down Championship the previous year to Burns, so having coming off the back of a number of years. So look, it probably was a gamble in many regards, because nobody really knows whether a team has peaked or whether there's a bit more left. So, but it was a great opportunity, and look, one that I've thoroughly enjoyed so far.
Did you do any homework on the club and the players, or did you have an understanding of what you were going into?
Not really, to be honest. I came in what I knew. You know, obviously we had played Kilcoo in the Ulster Club, and obviously had seen a fair bit of them. I'd sort of done the radio on some of their finals with Cross and with Slaughtneil, so I would have knew a lot of the more established players, was the older players. and I just knew how good they were. So I hadn't really done anything. It was more a case of, look, it was a great opportunity to work with Mickey. You know, Kilcoo's a great club, and at that stage I just retired from playing a number of weeks prior to that. So it just, the time and everything just fell in, and once my wife agreed to let me disappear, that was it. So
what about the travelling then, Conleith? What about the travelling? Did the wife take much convincing, or how long is the trip to and from?
To be fair, my wife's an angel, you know, because I've been away a lot, you know, right through from we sort of met and getting married, and I'd been playing with Derry and Ballinderry, and it was always like that. And I suppose maybe she had thought that once I'd quit playing, the thing would slow down a wee bit, but it didn't really work out like that. And it was very good and very supportive. And without that, you wouldn't be able to do things like this. So I'm lucky in that I would work for the Kerry group, and I would work a fair wee bit in the sort of Newry South Armagh area. So some of the days in training, it suits me that I'm actually in that area anyway. So it's not too bad for me. It takes me about an hour and 15 minutes getting home. Mickey and Paul have a whole lot more to do, because they're obviously travelling up and down on the same day, and they would have probably about an hour and 25 minutes each way. So it is a lot. It is a big commitment, especially during the winter, whenever those nights where getting down the hill at Rathfrail on the way home with the snow on the ground was very, very treacherous. But thankfully there wasn't that many of them, and as I say, whenever the season starts going and you sort of get a wee bit of momentum, and things are going well, the journey home is very easy. You know, coming home from a league game on a Friday night and you've lost, it's a very long journey home, I can assure you.
And do the three of you travel together sometimes, or and then is it discussion then the whole way what you're going to do for training, or how's that planned out as well, Conleith?
No, we would tend to meet down there prior to training, you know, so we would sort of have it well enough planned out in advance, and it would be straightforward. We've drank a lot of tea in and around the milestone or Rathfrail, to the point where we're on first name terms, and they kind of know what sort of sandwiches Mickey and Paul like and what they don't like. So no, it's great, you know, and the people up there have been very, very good. And you know, to be fair, a lot of the time we're just having a bit of crack. The bit that people don't realise that Mickey's very, very funny and very witty. People just see the more serious side of him, but nobody loves a joke and a bit of crack better than him.
He was down at Leitrim prior to taking the Kilcoo job. PJ McGee got him in, and I was lucky enough to get to see him in action with the Leitrim players and that. And you know, as you said, his personality really comes through in his coaching as well. He commands respect, you know, even for what he's done in the game, but also the way he talks to players as well.
I know, that's it. And I suppose people always ask, you know, like, what does Mickey have, or what's it about him? And you know, it's very hard to put your finger on. It's very hard to quantify. But he just does this thing where he can relate to players, regardless of the youngest players, the oldest players, and they can relate to him. And you know, he can get on so well with all of them, and you know, he gets the respect from them without having to shout. You know, without having to get angry. You know, he doesn't. You know, very rarely would ever raise his voice, and you know, he just has that, and as well as having a brilliant ability to coach and communicate. You know, I think that's the big thing, and I suppose probably with him coming from a teaching background, you know, he's a great communicator, and you know exactly where you stand with him all the time, and that's a massive thing. And I suppose it's something, his calmness is something I've really learned and probably tried to pick up a wee bit on.
And how did you introduce yourself to the Kilcoo boys? Obviously, you're well known in GA circles, but it's different coming from another county into the club, and Kilcoo obviously demanding immediate success.
Look, it was very easy, I suppose. Mickey was the person that they really, really wanted. He was the man that they wanted, and the fact that Mickey had faith in me and Paul, that was it. When Mickey told them, boys, these are who I want to come with me, that was it. You know, if it's good enough for Mickey, it's good enough for us. So it was very easy, and to be fair to the boys, you know, they were very good and very accepting straight away, and very receptive to new ideas, and probably just a slightly different way of doing things.
Yeah. And just on you said about different things, you're coming into down football. Obviously, you know, there was a big fanfare about the coaches and all that there, that you had arrived. I seen you at a number of games myself whenever I was doing the podcast and that. You had a notebook, a pen, you sat away by yourselves. What exactly were the notes you were taking? There were some games there, I don't know what you could have been writing at halftime. I think there was one that it was 3-2 at halftime. I said, that man's not going to be writing too much.
Oh no, there's plenty of games like that. No, look, at the start, it was just getting to know. Like, there was a lot of young players that we had no idea about, and like we entered the Ulster League, and like it was massively important because at that stage we could experiment, and we give a lot of the minors loads of football, and Tiernan Fettis and young players like that, and Sheelan Johnson, Anthony Morgan. Probably if you hadn't have entered the Ulster League and you had played sort of challenge matches at a higher standard, you probably wouldn't have been able to gamble as much. And to be fair to a lot of the players that came in and got a chance and took it and stayed within the team, and it was a credit to them, because it's a case if you're playing well, you stay, and that's what they done. But to be fair, it's just a case of trying to get to know the players, and Mickey, to be fair, tell him his judgment is normally spot on. Whenever he does sort of form that opinion, he tends to get it right nearly all the time, which is annoying, because sometimes I would disagree with him and then have to apologise because he's got it right. So, but that's learning for me, I suppose.
And whenever you're going into the opposition, then are you trying to get their tactics, or because even this year in Down, as you said about the young players, there was a change of the guard definitely in most teams where boys retired, and there seemed to be a whole host of new players in every team. So, like, what exactly would you've been like? He kicks with his left foot, he's more right-footed, or would have been just pattern of play exactly?
Look, to be fair, we had to go and watch an awful lot of Down football outside of our own games. Particularly in the championship, we tried to watch nearly all of them, because a lot of the teams we wouldn't have known a huge amount about. In fairness, Mickey would have a really good knowledge on them. Like, a lot of the players would have come through Jordanstown, and Mickey would have coached a lot of them,
Right.
and would have knew a lot of them. So he was at a head start even compared to me. And between me and Paul, I suppose we would have knew some of the players, and between the three of us and putting our heads together, it was just trying to find out, how best to prepare for it. And like, you don't always get it right. Sometimes you go and watch a game and you see something, and you're really steadfast in your views that this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then the game happens when you're playing on it, and nothing you plan for actually happens. So it's just giving the players the tools to be able to adapt to the games on their own, and to be fair to the players themselves, like, they're very good at that. They could almost manage themselves. They're very, very good, and they're very astute in terms of what they need to do on game days. And
how did you find the standard of Down football? Obviously, Derry football, it's notorious for the clubs just don't like each other, and it's cited as a reason why Derry's maybe not hitting the heights at county level. But the standard of Down football then, Conleith?
Yeah, I think very similar. I suppose the one thing that sort of stood out for me was how many of the older players, and to not be disrespectful, but players 30 and maybe 30 plus that had maybe played for Down in previous years, that are still so influential within their own clubs. That not surprised me, but it was just amazing how good those players got a second flush of youth almost. Watching the likes of Aidan Kiar playing for Clonduff, and the number of games that they were maybe in a wee bit of trouble, and he was able to pull them out and was flying fit. And that sort of stood out for me, and how many players that had played at a very high level and had stepped back into the clubs but were nearly reborn again. So there's loads of players like that. John Boyle, when you go and watch Warren Point, just so good. And that was the thing that stood out. And they're the best players in the pitches, but I suppose they're obviously at an age where they're probably not going to play for Down again. And that's the bit that jumped out. There's so many really good players from such a breadth of clubs that probably weren't available to play for Down for one reason or another. So that stood out, when you go to watch games.
That's interesting, that you say that, because I was trying to think there of, boys, maybe it was that they've stopped training for their county, and now, they can enjoy their football again.
Look, it seems to be that, and obviously probably a less pressurised situation, and family life is probably a wee bit easier when they're only nipping down to the club, and you can go to train for a couple of hours and be back at home and still have more of a family life. And probably the way county football has went, more so now in the last number of years, it's so professional. that it takes up all your life, and if you're not going to commit everything to it, you're probably not going to get a huge amount out of it. And like that's born out of those teams in Division 1. When you look at some of the schedules that be leaked online, it's just an incredible lifestyle that they have to live, and it's hugely rewarding for them. And I know none of them begrudge it. And you hear players saying that they do it because they want to do it, but the ask on players at the top end is incredible, and it's probably getting to the point where it will be unsustainable into the future.
Conleith, you played on to a good age yourself.
Only 39. Only 39.
Did you find whenever you retired from the county then that the pressure was off you and you could enjoy your football more?
I don't know. It's a funny one with me because people talk about enjoying. I never really enjoyed. I enjoyed training, loved training, and loved the crack of training, but I never enjoyed matches. I never. Even league matches as I got older, it got worse. When I was younger, I didn't really suffer much with nerves, and a lot of people would say, you wouldn't be nervous, but I was always trying to hide it. But I was always full of self-doubt, and I suppose as I got older, that self-doubt disappeared a wee bit, and I had a bit more confidence in what I was able to do. But I found the pressure was probably a wee bit more because we were maybe playing full forward, and the person you were marking was always younger or fitter, so you were having to push a wee bit harder all the time to try and keep up and fit in. And it was great whenever you could do that, but definitely as it got older, I felt the burden a wee bit more. And I know it sounds funny, but I enjoyed the final whistle, and you were a point in front and you won, and that drive home in the car from a Sunday game, and you're buzzing all Sunday night, and you wake up on a Monday feeling great, but then it started again, and you were looking to the next league. Even league games, I was sort of feeling the pressure also. Whenever I just decided I'd had enough. The last league game we were beat by Glen in the semi-final of the championship, and I didn't know whether I was doing the right thing at the time, but a week after it, and I just thought, right, it was the right thing, and it probably was the right time.
The self-doubt, it's very interesting because you play a playmaker role, kind of very successful at it. You have to have the trust of the managers playing that role, or as you said, you mightn't reach the heights that you had. Why do you think that the managers put the faith in you, and did you feed off that then?
Yeah, I think it was a lot easier playing within the club structure, because when you went to play for Derry, there were so many other players there. If you're having a bit of an off day early on, I found, playing for Derry, that I probably was taken off more than I felt I deserved to be. Mm-hmm. Now, I was never taken off for playing brilliantly well. The managers were generally always right. But when playing for Ballinderry, you always, even the game wasn't going for you, the management always had the trust in you that, he's going to do something here, he's going to turn it. So you could have a rubbish game for 40 minutes, and suddenly in the last 15 minutes, you could score 1-2 or 1-3, or score 2 or 3 points that are really important, and everybody's going away saying you had a great game. But unless you had the faith of the manager, you probably would have been taken off just after half time. And probably as a forward, you kind of need that. You need the confidence to know that you can work your way into the game and that you're not going to be taken off. Because once you're looking over your shoulder at the subs warming up, which has happened to me before, you see, especially whenever, I suppose that was a good while ago, but whenever subs started warming up, just to be warming up. And I remember a game and I seen a couple of guys warming up, and I'm going, he's going to take me off here. And I spent the next 10 minutes looking around to see. And then once they stopped warming up, I thought, I may be okay here. But it's funny, it's them things. And as a player, especially when it's not going well, you look for all them wee signals. And, it's great whenever you have the confidence of the manager that you can play on and work through the bad phases.
Are you bringing that into your coaching as well, Conleith? Now, Kilcoo obviously have all some of the top forwards and down. Are you looking to give them that trust and belief that maybe if they're ever having an off day, that they'll work themselves into the game?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's very important, I suppose. And you go and you see, sort of sidelines shouting at players, and as a forward, you don't need to be told when it's not going well, or a defender. So it's kind of giving players, that feeling of support from the line, and that's something Mickey and Paul are great at. like they're never judging. You know, they're allowing players to work through the phases and to see how it goes. And more often than not, the players will work it out for themselves, but they have to be given the room to do that, because the sideline never has all the answers. Rarely has any of the answers. When it goes well, everybody looks like geniuses, and when it goes badly, everybody looks stupid. But the truth is normally somewhere in the middle, and players tend to work out a lot of it themselves. And giving the players trust, you know, it's a massive part of football now, more than anything.
There's a touch of Jason Sherlock about your coaching style whenever you're running on the pitch. You seem to take forever to come off whenever you're on it. But what would you be saying to the players there whenever you come on and you know you see them grabbing them for a couple of seconds and then you know you're meandering off them?
More so, it'll be asking them what they think or what they see, because obviously they're looking straight down the pitch and they can see the game very differently than when you're looking at it, you know, from a lateral view. So a lot of the times, you know, it'll be given small instructions, but more often than not, it'll be asking, look, you know, they're getting down our middle. What do you think's happening? What do you see? You know, so it's getting information both ways, you know, and players are able to see an awful lot, particularly like a full back or a centre half back or a midfielder. They can see things that you never can see. And sometimes on the sideline, you're at the worst vantage point because there's so much going on behind you. It's very, very difficult to, you know, just to focus on the game. Oh. And I refute all allegations have been on the pitch too long, by the way, John.
I get video evidence. No, but it makes sense then just to get all the different views as well. I suppose, kind of like as you said, and I suppose a defender has a different viewpoint of a game, how a game's going, than a forward as well.
Yeah, because you know it's a completely different game for him. You know, he's concentrating on his man, and if he can see a player that seems to be loose and giving the good balls in, you know, he can say, look, it's that man, he's free. You know, we need to push up on him. He's causing the damage. And it's sometimes you miss things on the sideline, or sometimes it's telling somebody that they need to push out on him. He's the one causing the damage. So every player has their own perspective, and like right from the back. And to be fair to the boys, you know, they're very good at that, and you know they can give you a great opinion, and you know they're very, very astute in that regard.
Kilcoo's style of play seems to have changed, Conleith, from the past couple of years. It seems more possession based. Was that something that you had brought in mind with how Ulster football is going? And is it something that you brought in from Derry as well? No,
not particularly. To be fair, you know, it's a lot of the stuff is based around, you know, the opposition as well. Because obviously, you know, a lot of teams, you know, if they're going to pack the defence, you know, you have to sort of pick holes and try and get the right man moving at the right time to try and break through. So, you know, all the games are very, very different. Some games, you know, you're putting longer ball in. Some games you have to hold it up because, you know, the middle channel is blocked. And I suppose it's just a case of modern football now that, you know, teams, in fairness, players are so fit, players are so good. You know, for me, players at every level have never been better. They've never been fitter. They've never been stronger. You know, their skills have never been as well honed. So at every, you know, cornerbacks now want to play football. So it's a case of just horses for courses, and every game just needs something different at times. So there's no one way or one style. It's what you think is going to get you over the line.
And did your opinion change of Kilcoo players, not individual players, but you know, when you first took them, and how did they evolve then through the season?
See, to be honest, not really. Like we hit the ground running in terms of the Ulster League, and to be fair, the work ethic of the players and their willingness to sacrifice, you know, like you couldn't fault it. The effort they give, you know, they're 100% committed to everything, and that's all you want. And it's a joy, you know, whenever things work out, obviously, and you win, and then it all looks worthwhile. But you know, whether you win or not, like the players last year couldn't have, you know, give us any more. You know, they couldn't have sacrificed. They couldn't have worked any harder. They were a pleasure every night, and I mean that genuinely. It's easy to say that when you win, but genuinely looking back, even we hadn't have, you know, won a quarter-final or semi-final and it hadn't went down, like the boys had done everything they possibly could to put themselves in the best position, you know, to achieve something. And when you do that, you've always got a chance. And look, you know, that's a mark of them, and not just we came in. Like, to be fair, there was loads of people in before that had put loads and loads of work into them boys, right from, the one Afela way back, and the one of Miners, and there was loads of people, particularly within the club that, put huge effort into that. And I suppose, look, we were lucky that came at a time that at the, the fruition of all their hard work. And it would be unfair not to acknowledge that, because sometimes you can be lucky and just come in at the right time. But the work that has been put into them boys, and and they appreciate it as well, because a lot of them now give so much back to the youth again. Especially nights before training, the 6s, the under 8s, under 10s, under 12s would all be training on the pitch before the seniors, and we would have to wait on the seniors to finish training them before we can get on. So they appreciate it. They know how important it is, and to be fair, it's a credit to them giving back.
Mm-hmm. And you're coming from a very successful club yourself in Ballinderry. Winning mentality, then, kind of, how you're seeing it with Kilcoo now. What sets it apart then from other teams?
Look, it's very hard to know. I suppose probably the fact, the remoteness of Kilcoo probably means that everybody within the club, within the team, are very heavily related. They're very close. They're family ties. They all live very closely together, and that's a tight bond. And any, I suppose, like coming from Ballinderry, it's very rural. It's a very small place. You have a chapel, you have a pub, you have a shop. That's all you have. Right. So the football field tends to be the whole centre of all activity. At Christmas, everything's on around the field. In the summer, there's things on around the field. So I think in terms of the mentality, it's just a community spirit, and it's not any different to tons and tons of small communities through Down or through Ulster. But again, they have a huge group of hard-working club members that I suppose is replicated everywhere, and nothing's ever a bother. No matter what the club needs, nothing is ever a bother. There's always somebody on hand to help, no matter any issue.
And with your time with Ballinderry, then, do you think you could have won more? You've won one All-Ireland, Conleith, would that be right?
Yeah.
I think you won seven league titles, 4 championships in Derry. You were a dominant force in Derry for a long time. Do you think you could have won more All-Irelands, or was that just your peak at that time?
No, well, I suppose, look, Ballinderry won a championship in '95 with a very young team out of the blue, and then we lost 2 finals in a row in '99 and 2000. Blahy were the big team at that stage, and they had won an Ulster club, and we eventually beat them in the 3rd final in 2002. So that was the start. But we were a very young team at that stage, and we were lucky enough to come through and win an Ulster and All-Ireland club that first breakthrough year, because with Brian McCaver as manager. Mm-hmm. And I suppose after that, then the confidence built, and then between that and I suppose we finishing, we'd won 7 championships. But in that time, we'd also lost 5 finals. So look, we won 2 Ulster clubs, and I suppose in many places that would be incredible, but we lost 3 finals, 2 of them, we lost 3 times to Cross, who went on to win All-Ireland. So we came at a time when we just fell a wee bit short whenever Cross were there at their pomp. We probably should have won more, and within things then, whenever we were sort of going for back-to-back Ulster clubs, then we had the sad death of Aaron Devlin, which really rocked us in that season. Whenever we were trying to go back-to-back Ulsters, and I suppose it was just such a blow to the community. Aaron was just so vibrant. He'd been 28 now, I think, this week, and in the 5 years that he's gone, it hasn't been any easier. Collie and Ronan, his brothers, were playing with us, and their family were very closely linked to the club in that sense. So that didn't help, and it was hard to get back at it. And I suppose then, look, we played in a couple more semi-finals, and then Slaughtneil come to the fore, and we just weren't able, after 2014, just to get back to the heights. But look, Derry football is just so competitive. No matter who comes out of it, the Loop came out of it, won an Ulster club. Ballinderry had won, Slaughtneil had won, Ballinderry had an Ulster club. So whoever came out of Derry had just always felt that a serious opportunity in Ulster, and it was something that when your neighbours done it, you valued it, and you thought, we're maybe not too far away, and we could have a go at it here.
Mm-hmm. Coming towards the end of your career, then, kind of, you've played in different generations, I suppose, different styles of football. How as a playmaker did you find the last few years then?
Well, I suppose over the last number of years, I'd kind of moved inside and played in a full forward line with sort of one of the young lads like Daniel McKinless that had legs. So basically, Daniel went out, run out like a demon, won the ball, beat his man, and when he got bottled up, I looked in around him and took the handy point, and it looked like I was going well, but it was just the foil for the likes of like Daniel McKinless. So it actually, I found just in later years, it was harder to get the ball, harder to get there, but experience is a great tool if you use it right. And I was able to be in better places, probably move less, but always be in a better position to take a ball and stay closer to goals and, get your shots away. And if you can do that, and and you see it there, the likes of a Conor Lavery now, where Conor's playing a wee bit closer to goal, and it's just his ability to be in the right place at the right time sets him apart from lots of other younger players who have way more mobility, but just that mental capacity to see things 2 or 3 moves ahead. So I think older players have a huge advantage, but the game's getting harder now and harder for older players because of the physicality, particularly of young players coming out 18, 19. They're just incredible athletes now.
And as you say there about the forwards, are you taking them for like one-on-one sessions, maybe working their timing of the runs, their run patterns as well, Conleith?
No, look, at the minute it's just a case of boys are just keeping themselves tipping over until the 28th, and then we obviously have the social distancing guidelines in place, so it'll be a case of in small groups, and that'll be hard. That will be very hard for clubs to try and look at and try and get the best out of it. But everybody's in the same position, and providing everybody's safe and well, and the virus doesn't spread within a club, that's the most important thing. The safety of the players, and especially the players that are going home to elderly parents or to anybody in the family that's shielding for one reason or another. And like the football is great at the moment, and it's great to have something to look forward to. But at the back of everybody's mind, there's still that fear that people are still dying within different communities. I know the numbers are very low now at the moment, but most countries have had a spike. And look, you just want to put all the safety aspects in place to try and keep it as safe for players as possible.
Yeah, because you don't know who has underlying health issues or anything like that there. So it is. I know it's fantastic, and I hope just that we do get through this okay. And as you say, the social distancing out there. I think it's up to groups of 10 now. So fingers crossed we can start getting back to full trainings again.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
And it's important for players as well.
Yeah.
Like mental health is a massive issue. Within men especially, and men at certain ages. And for anybody where football is their main outlet, for not to have that, like it has been very difficult for people. And I suppose men have a propensity not to talk about it and to bottle it up because I suppose it's not seen as the done thing. And thankfully that's changing now. But the football, as much as it is the physical fitness, like there's a whole mental element to it, and like you can never underestimate the damage that not having that outlet has had for players. And and we'll not know now because everything will go back to normal. But in a year's time or 2 years' time, they'll look back at this and there will be damage done from players who haven't had that outlet. And fingers crossed that everybody can get back into the club and an environment where it's safe, that they can really look after themselves.
Yeah, definitely, and the clubs and the J is doing fantastic work. I just want to say that as well. So well done, everybody.
Yeah, it is. It's easy to have a go and it's easy to knock. And everybody has a go with fixtures committees, and everybody can have a go at Ulster Council. To be fair, everybody has got it in the right thing, and it's just a case of everybody sort of looking at this situation and trying to take the best out of it. Because the positive is we're back. At one point during the year, it looked like there may be no football. So I think you have to take the positives at this point. Definitely
it is. And whenever you're going back to coaching, then Conleith, and did you always have one eye on coaching whenever you were playing? You were going to say, I'll make a go of this coaching or managing whenever the time came to hang up the boots?
Yeah, I suppose. Look, I had been doing wee bits and pieces. I've had the sort of wee boys in Ballinderry from way back, probably the early 2000s. And then my own son is 15 now, but I was involved with his wee teams all the way through. And this year I've been taking Ballinderry under 16s as well. So it's always something I've done in the background, something I enjoy, I suppose. like my own philosophy would be very much skill based and football based, and try and do everything as much as possible through the ball, because that's ultimately where the learning is. And the difference for most teams at any level is their ability to do the right thing on the ball under pressure. And the more often you can put players, particularly in a pressurized situation, on the ball, they get used to making the mistakes at training, so when it comes into the game that they're probably better prepared. And when you do that, you just give players the tools to try and to work situations out, because you can't shout on, you can't tell them what to do. Players are instinctively what they are. And like Desi Ryan's would always have this thing that said players are 90% of what they're ever going to be, but if you can help them 1 or 2%, that's the difference between getting the ball over the bar, being in the right position, winning and losing. And and that was Desi's philosophy, and it's something that always stuck with me.
That's very true, isn't it? If you can coach somebody even 1%, sometimes it might have to.
And his big thing was the 1%ers. That he was coaching with Ballinderry all through the years, like, and Enda McNulty and Kieran McGeaney, and these boys are still going to Desi Ryan's and getting tidbits from him. Desi's he's just an oracle of information, and his big thing was always the 1%ers. What can you do different? How could you do it different? How could you do it better? And asking players, well, what do you think? Desi had always a brilliant thing where he says, like, the players have all the information. There's hundreds of years of experience. Don't ignore them. Ask them what you think you should do sometimes. And that always stuck with me, asking them, what do they think? Getting their opinion. And again, Mickey would be very much of that philosophy as well.
You're saying about influencers, they're kind of, you've had a raft of managers with Derry and Ballinderry. What managers impressed you and why?
Look, to be fair, there was so, like, with Ballinderry, like, we had so many, we were very lucky with so many people within the club that were just so good and have went other places and done, like we had, Pat McGuckin and Adrian McGuckin when we were growing up, and, just were always there with information, just incredible. And then when I first came in to the senior team, Damien Barton had just retired, and he'd come in and taken Ballinderry, and he was the first manager that probably showed any faith in me. And and I'll always be grateful for Damien. And Damien, just the work ethic that Damien would have had, and there was no nonsense, and and that stuck with me. And always tried to out train everybody, and and that was from Damien. And then after Damien came in was Brian McIver, and I suppose Brian was probably the first manager that put me at centre half forward, and persevered with me, because I had no experience at it. And like, me and Brian would still be incredibly close today, through that times. And just, within that, there were so many other people. Again, I'm leaving people out, but I've just found that no matter who I work with, there's always something you can take from them. And if you can't learn from everybody, there's something wrong with you, because everybody's got something really good in their army, but you have to ask the right questions. And like, I'm just, like all things in coaching, I'm just like a magpie. I'm trying to steal ideas and take things from other people. And there's very little new in coaching. There's very little revolutionary. Everything is just a rehashed version of something somebody's already done. And if you can ask the right questions, get information, it's incredible what you'll learn. But you have to be open to admitting you don't know very much. And when you do that, you kind of can grow a wee bit more. And again, as well as that, the fear of failure goes, because you open yourself up to say, look, I don't know everything, and tell me about it. What do you do? So I love chatting to different coaches about what they do and how they do it and why they do it. And I'd have my own ideas of what to do, but there's always something from somebody else that you can steal. And when you read books and from different managers and different coaches, like, there's always something that you think, why did I not think of that? It's so obvious. And the best ideas always are obvious as well. So obvious you don't think of them.
That's an exact staring you right in the face. Like, sometimes, is there any sports that you take inspiration from as well, for training sessions or leadership skills and that kind of?
I suppose not really. In terms of sports, in the books, I like reading a lot of the rugby stuff. Obviously from there I've moved into that real professional era. They've taken everything to a new level, and I suppose Gaelic has probably followed rugby in a lot of ways that probably hasn't been helpful in a lot of ways. But in terms of the ethos of what they do, and especially around recovery, because, everybody can train hard and everybody can train every day, but it's that ability to recover. And when you look at how professional teams recover, that is the difference, because you need all your players fit all the time. And sometimes doing nothing is the best thing, and allowing players to recover. And again, it's no different. You look at professional sports and soccer teams, and, they're not going out training the day after a tough match. And, you can learn so much from other sports. And I suppose tactically, you look at what happens in basketball, and it's just so interesting that there's always something you can glean. But again, mostly in books and autobiographies I enjoy. I like reading, but it would have to be a story from somebody that I'd have an interest in.
The way that you plan sessions then, kind of, obviously the different phases of the season. You've got the pre-season, then you've got your league, and then gearing up for championship. I was talking to Mickey Keane, and he was saying that, Kilcoo definitely taper their trainings to suit. What's your philosophy around that, and how do you plan for that?
Yeah, look, in terms of all the sessions, like me and Mickey and Paul would sit down, and we'd all have an equal input into what we do, and it's a case of looking at, well, who's available. Like a lot of the season, you've county players away. We'd have a lot of players working in Dublin, that maybe don't be home. So a lot of the time, you're trying to tailor it for, giving players the utmost amount of rest. We have a lot of players that are up at 6 o'clock in the morning in a work van and laying bricks or roofing in Dublin. So all the training is geared around the players and what's right for them. And again, yeah, there's a wee bit of tapering goes on. But again, it's very football based. Like with Mickey and Paul, and myself, our philosophy is very much around football. Everything as much as we can will be a football involved in it. And, a lot of decision making, a lot of, fun things. We want training to be enjoyable. And that's the one thing that even as a player, whenever Mickey was manager of Derry and him and John Morrison were a double act there, the one thing you had every night was you didn't know what you were coming to training. Every drill was different and challenging in a different way. And again, and Mickey has been able to carry that on right through. Boredom. Players don't. It's not a case of, well, we're doing ABC tonight. It's just something's different all the time. It's fun, and players go away knowing they've worked hard, but they've enjoyed it. And when you enjoy something, you look forward to getting back at it, and you put a wee bit more into it, I think.
John Morrison as a coach, then, kind of, how do you describe that man?
You can't describe John. He is just one of them forces of nature, and like him and Mickey just were. If you got two people that complemented each other as well, you could marry them. But John would have finished Mickey's sentences, and it was just an incredible fun time. And like that year, we got to the All-Ireland semi-final. We lost to Kerry. I'm not sure. I think it was maybe 2004 or 2005. But beyond all the fun, we had a really, really good team, capable. And again, with John and Mickey, they were just able to bring out the best. And because we were a young team, and John loved the crack, and you could tell him anything, and he'd come down the bus, and some of the stories he would tell, I can't actually repeat them here, because, but they're such, they're brilliant. Like, and one of the ones were with John, we were playing somebody in the Ulster Championship, and he had come down the bus, and he'd give everybody, starting a wee slip of paper of 3 things he wanted them to do, and he came down to mine, and I had been playing poorly that wee while, but I got in the team that day, and he came down, and it was I want you to put in 2 blocks, 1 turnover, and score 1-3. I looked at it, like, I hadn't scored 1-3 in the previous 10 games. I'm thinking, John, you fucking serious? 1-3? And he says, no, I think you can today. And to be fair, it was one of the days I didn't score 1-3, but it was one of the days I actually got 1 block. And it's something I've done rarely, and that was the wee thing. John done things, and it just provoked things in your mind. And like, John was a sports psychologist long before, the sports psychologist thing. He knew how to push your buttons, but he could be stern as well. And when he lost the plot, and it was rare. And again, and Mickey was always reeling them in whenever that happened. But it was that whenever they're managing Derry in them few years, like, it was it was a great time, and you know, it's unfortunate we didn't win in Ulster. We had a couple of good runs in the back door, but we came up a wee bit short. You know, at that stage Armagh and Tyrone were just coming, and it was difficult. And I suppose that year against Kerry, we had them in the rack for a long time with a goal disallowed, and they pulled away by 4 points, 5 points maybe at the end, and they won the All-Ireland. There was a big opportunity, but you know, it was great memories all the same.
What was his training sessions like? People were saying, I've read a lot about him, and they were saying he's, you know, a man before his time and that, and very innovative coach as well. Have you got an instance where you were thinking, geez, what the hell is he doing here?
Well, there's one I can remember, and before teams went out for pre-warm-ups, you know, John had us doing like a pre-training warm-up, and there was no balls involved, but basically he called it muscle memory. Now, we had never heard tell of muscle memory, and so John had us in twos, you know, pretending to kick, and the other player beside you pretending to block, and to pretend to fist the ball over his head, and you having to jump and block the pretend ball. So there's 5 or 6 scenarios that he had, and he had this thing where, you know, your muscles have a memory and they'll remember to do it, and when it comes to a game, it'll be instinctive, you know. And at the time we thought, what is this going on? But we done it because we believed in him and we believed in Mickey, and like it was 5-10 years later, and I started reading books like Bounce or some of the stuff from Matthew Said, and you know, and he talked about the 10,000 hour rule, and you know what made champions, and all of a sudden I started reading about, you know, the table tennis champion, and the muscle memory, that they played so many hours that they knew every shot because their muscles were able to react. I'm going, that was 10 years ago, and John was, you know, and they were the things, and you know, and in Mickey's coaching, Mickey was doing things then, you know, shooting things in possession that seemed novel. Like we, you know, even like back then there was no blanket defences, but like Mickey was saying, if a man goes past you and you're not in the play, stay where you're at and pick up his man and take his position, you know. And it was instinctive then. If somebody went by you and you were out of the play, so you give a 1-2. So instead of following the ball, which you were trained to do from a child, well, if you're not going to make the play again, just you stay there and allow the other player to finish the attack out and be the advantage. And you just turned around, and if he came out of wing half back, you just slotted into wing half back. Stuff now that happens by course, but like that was 04, and that was the sort of stuff that Mickey was doing. So look, both men were way ahead of their times in terms of coaching.
And what about the way coaching is now? You've got walkthroughs and scenarios, and you know, the small-sided games, and then you've got drills for drills, and you've got cones for cones. Do you think that it's sometimes coaching overkill?
It can be, no doubt. You know, sometimes the best thing to do is pick 2 teams and just play a big game and allow players to go at it. You know, so there's of course there's times of the year that you have to do fitness work.
Yes.
There's times of the year you have to do ball work. But then there's also times of the year where you have to just pick 2 teams and let them go at it. And sometimes, you know, especially when players don't know what they're coming to, they come to a training session on a Wednesday night and there's 2 sets of jerseys laid out and everybody's eyes lights up because they know we're just doing a quick warm-up and we're going into a game.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. And they learn through the game, and like there's no magic, there's no special, there's no science. It's just them doing what they're so good at, and it's playing football. And sometimes you just have to let players at it.
And what about sports analysis as well? Are you a big believer in that, to show players the decisions they're making, maybe to improve and what they're doing well?
Yeah, I think so. I think analysis, you know, is massively important now in all sports, and you know, you can't get away from it because it's there. It's a tool, and again, it can be very useful. But it's not. It's using it in a way that's productive, that helps the player. You know, it's easy to show the player the 10 things they've done wrong, but again, they don't really need to see it. They know it. They know when they've had that bad game. You know, it's much more productive if you can take that scenario and say, look, here's what you've done wrong, but here's what you've done really well. Now, if we can change this bit, you know, think about how good you'll be when you can do that bit as well. So it's there. Everybody's using it. probably some people use it more productively than others. But again, it's all subjective. And the thing is, the team that wins tends to write the history of whatever they do. So if somebody swims 10 mile and they win the championship because they swum 10 mile, most teams will be out next year swimming 10 mile. I think that's the magic. And it's rarely ever that. It's more of a collection of 1,000 very, very small things that all just happen to come together at the right time.
Now that you're Ulster champions, do you find it tough now that these are the standard bearers now as well? That teams are probably looking to you to see what you have done.
Look, there'll be an element of that. But again, I suppose most people know there's no magic, there's no special formula. It was just, the players putting in the hard work at the right time and doing everything they could to try and put themselves in a position to win. And I think most teams are doing that anyway. And again, when you look at last year's Down Championship, 1 or 2 or 3 points separated, all teams from the quarter-final on. So most teams will look at it and say, look, we're well in the hunt here to win a championship. And there's a host of teams will look at that and say, we have a realistic chance here. And that's the thing. And Kilcoo, like all other teams, just have to work hard to get themselves right. And, if they do them things, they put themselves in a position to get a result. But there's no guarantees in football, unfortunately. And there's no fairy tales. Sometimes you work hard and you get a reward for it. But a lot of times in football, you work really, really hard and you sacrifice an awful lot and the reward doesn't come. And, that's why the result and the winning can't be the end product. It has to be the journey of doing the best you can and seeing where it takes you, because, there's only going to be one team stands up there and lifts the cup. Every other team in every other championship are going to end up the season disappointed. And, sometimes the harder you work, the further away you seem to get. So, look, Kilcoo will be under a wee bit of pressure from other teams because they'll be gunning for it. But that's the challenge. The challenge is for Kilcoo to keep getting better, and if they can do, they're going to put themselves in a position again. But unfortunately, there's no guarantees, and the boys know that. A lot of them are very experienced and been around the block, and they've had major disappointments before and come back, and they've had great success and come back again. So they know the pitfalls, so they'll not be complacent. They'll not be taking anything for granted. They really enjoyed last year, but that's gone now. It's parked. Again, you'd love to think of it and enjoy it forever, but unfortunately you can't. You have to park it again, and that's a park now.
How did you cope with that as a player then, kind of being the top of the tree and teams gunning for you then?
I think Ballinderry actually were very good at it. Again, I suppose because historically there'd been a number of men, Pat McGuckin, Adrian McGuckin, Hugh Martin, that were around the club every night at training, who'd won Ulster clubs and a couple of championships in the early 80s. I think they beat actually Burn in the final in 81. And so they had been there and done that. And albeit at a certain time had won a championship, or, they had already done that. So a lot of the boys, you just knew to keep your feet in the ground because they would pull you down a peg or two if you ever try to get above your station. I think that's a credit to people in Ballinderry, that even whenever the success was there and it was, we were dominant for stages, we never overdone it. We never over celebrated it. We never done anything that would give anybody an extra advantage over us, because we were conscious that it could turn very quick, because we'd won an All-Ireland club and then we won another championship. We lost Ulster club semi-final the following year, and then bang, for 2 years we didn't win a championship. So the pitfalls. And in Derry, whatever team happened to come out of Derry tended to win Ulster. So you knew if you don't win the championship, whichever team beats you to win a championship is going to win Ulster, and it's going to be very hard to live with that in the coming up to Christmas. And that's the difficulty when you have to watch your neighbour doing really well and you know that you didn't do enough. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, and that really drove you on, because it wasn't that you massively really, really, really wanted to win a championship, but it got to a stage where you didn't want anybody else winning it, so it was easier for you to try and win it yourself.
How'd you keep fit? How'd you keep fit over the winter then? Whenever, I suppose you were playing football right up until, so you didn't really have to worry about your own physical fitness whenever you were playing.
No, a lot of the years we had got runs later in Ulster, so you were sort of going right up until nearly Christmas, and then come January, February, you were back at it again. So it was never a real big issue. But I suppose when I started playing, I suppose it was less sports science. and like we used to have a field behind. We only had one pitch at that stage, and there was a field that they grew potatoes in, and there was no lights other than on the main pitch. So I think it was Brian McIver was. I can't actually remember if it was Brian McIver or Damien Barton, but we had a chairman, Mickey Donnelly, and Mickey was a farmer, and I think he actually maybe owned the field. But we had one of the nights we just got to the bottom of the field, and it was a sheer face straight up, and there was no lights. So Mickey took the tractor, and he just shone the tractor light down the hill, and we went for an hour up and down, up and down, up and down, and that was it. In football, or the training then was like one other night when Martin McKinless was manager, and I think it was in around maybe 2010, 2011, but we had a bad league result the week before, and something happened, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but we had a wee huddle at the start, and we were talking about what went wrong, and some player said something out of place anyway. So Martin lost a lot to his right, in twos, round the pitch, and for 45 minutes he blew the whistle, back two to the front. We run for 45 minutes, 25 laps, and every time somebody opened their mouth, another lap, another 5 minutes. And you know what? If you done it maybe today, it'd seem like cruelty.
Yeah.
But to be fair, it was exactly what we needed, because we probably had just got a wee bit too big for our boots, and that pulled us down a peg or two. And sometimes them things happen and they come for a reason. And the one thing about Martin was he knew exactly when he needed to take out the big stick. And when he took out the big stick, he tended to use it.
But that's good that it was still, a group of senior footballers that had achieved could still respect the manager that got, to do the 25 laps around the pitch. Yeah,
well, look, I suppose at that time, Martin had been around the club for years and had been given the job because he was the only one who wanted it, is the reality. And in his first year and won a championship, and then he left for a year, and then he come back the year after, I think, and won another championship, and then he maybe left for a year and then come back and won 3 in a row. So in terms of his ability to do the right thing and make the right calls, and the players respected that. And Martin was a man, he was a farmer, he was a very straight talker, and if you had to be told something, like there was no nice words, there was no buttering it up. He told you it straight, and you either accepted it or you didn't. But if you didn't accept it, you were the loser. So no, it was very different. But again, great, and like he presided over a very, very successful time in the club here.
Have you lost your temper with at any training session yet, or are you more taking a player to the side and having a quiet word?
No, not really. And I would be a bit fiery in times, and early on in my coaching, I'd be a lot fierier. But the one thing I suppose that Mickey brings to everything is a calmness, and because Mickey's calm, it's a lot easier for me to be calm. And Paul would be very laid back as a character as well. So between the three of us, we tend to not lose our tempers or the run of ourselves, and everything is done calmly and quietly, because I don't know whether players actually react to that sort of stuff anymore. Maybe there's a time for it, but players are now so sophisticated. Most players have been around the block. They've been to colleges. They've played for county teams. They know how things happen, and they know when it's right and they know when it's wrong, and they don't really need to be told it, I suppose.
I've seen that there's a couple of posts about and webinars about half-time talks. I've seen Cormac Vanny and Stephen Poacher were putting up. What's your feeling on half-time, and what's the drill with that you believe can get a better second half?
It's hard to know. If there was a science for half-time, most teams that come in leading at half-time would win the match. But for me, half-time sometimes in games can come too early. You're in the ascendancy for the last 5 or 6 minutes. You've reeled off 4 or 5 points, and you've been in games yourself where you're begging, blow that whistle to get in half-time to see what went wrong. And there's times when you want to just play it on because you're in the hot seat. You go in at half-time having played brilliantly in the first half, and how many teams come out and don't start? And you always look at half-time to see, what could we have done better? And there's times that absolutely you could do things better, but I don't know if there's a science. I think in terms of half-time, players need to regroup. And, if you look at the Dublin model where Jim Gavin seems to ask the players, what's went wrong, and whether you ever hear the full story about how they operate or not is neither here nor there, I suppose. But, he seems to put the responsibility back on the players. And, from that perspective, it is the players that do dictate the terms of it. In terms of half-time, players will only really listen to 2 or 3 messages anyway, so there's no point overcomplicating things. What you've done going into the game, especially if you're winning at half-time, you want to keep a bit more of the same. But if you're getting beat, then's the time you might need to change something. But again, I think every half-time is so different. Every game is so different that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to it. Sometimes you need to go in and you need to point the finger and blow the children doors off. And there's a time and a place for all them things. But it's knowing the players well enough to know when they need an arm around their shoulder or when they need a toe up the backside. And you do know when it's appropriate. It doesn't always work, but when it does, then you look like it's success. When it doesn't work, it looks like failure. And football, I suppose, is such a non-fluid thing that sometimes you think you're getting it right, and you couldn't be further from the truth, and sometimes it's vice versa.
You seem to accept that, as you said, you're not in control of everything, kind of, and that you're willing to adapt to the situations on the pitch and maybe off the pitch as well. Has that come through experience, or have you always been that way?
I suppose, look, because I struggled so much internally and mentally when I was playing, when I was younger, I suppose, and people probably wouldn't associate that with me, and there's people probably listening to this going, no, that's not the case. But like going to games, or maybe I was hitting the freeze, and it was always thinking back to the freeze I missed in the last day I played that team, and he got the better of me, and I was always full of self-doubt, and you're always looking to get that first ball. And I suppose things like that you can see in other players, and you can help them because you've been there. And I think that's the big advantage with having played and having struggled playing. I think when you look at hurling, and if Henry Stephen or TJ Reid, they look like players that have never struggled. So how could they know what somebody playing rubbish is feeling like? I've been dropped from Derry teams, and particularly with Derry, and struggled all the way through. So I understand what it's like to be on the periphery looking in, and what do I have to do to get into the team. And it's knowing when players are down, and when they need a wee pep talk, or they need a word, and when they're struggling mentally, and how you can help them. And sometimes it's just, I understand how you're feeling, and it's not nice, but look, it'll pass. It's a bad game, you're having a bad run, but you're a good player, eventually it'll come, but you just have to relax. And it's knowing when to do all them things, and you don't always get it right, and a lot of times you get it wrong, and you can make situations wrong, but in all the situations you're just doing the best you can. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that, and if you accept that failure is part of that, then there's a great freedom in knowing and not being afraid to fail. Because a lot of life and a lot of sport, a lot of people get things wrong because they're afraid of failure, and that's something you have to just face up to, and that's a reality of life in sport.
Do you think it held you back? You achieved so much, at playing for your county, winning numerous titles with Ballinderry and with Derry as well. Do you think your self-doubt held you back, Conleith, to get that more consistent playing career?
It did, absolutely. It did with Derry. I came into the panel. I suppose one thing a lot of people mightn't know was that I didn't start playing outfield until I was about 18 at minors. I'd have been as the Derry minor goalkeeper in '97,
right,
and the Derry under-21 goalkeeper in '98, and then I played in '96, '97, and Damien Barton. We went to Kilcoo Sevens in '96, and I played outfield, or I played in goals with the sort of sweeper role. Yeah. Played well, and we won the Kilcoo Sevens that year. And Damien Barton's first year, something like that, he tried me outfield at wing half back, wing half forward, and he stuck with me there. And so I was only playing senior football a year when I was called into the Derry panel in 2000 or 99, something like that. And the first week I was called into the panel, Derry were playing in the National League final against Meath, and I didn't make the subs that day, and I was just happy to be there. I got a tracksuit. You know, I was a student in Belfast. This was all I needed. And,
living it.
Yeah, so we drew with Meath that first day. Tuchel scored a brilliant goal, and Meath came back and drew the game. And then the league was earlier that year, so 2 weeks later, the first round of the Ulster Championship was there, and Derry played Cavan. But we had picked up injuries in between times, and the Thursday night before they named the team, I was named number 22 on the bench, and this was just like I was never going to play. I was never going to get on. And I thought, this is brilliant. And then I think it was Joe Cassidy was a sub, and I think he came on and then got injured very quickly. Him and Jeffrey McGonigal had a double substitution. Joe came on and got injured, and it was in Breffni, and Eamon Coleman called me by every name under the sun bar my right name, Cormac, Conrad, but eventually most of the time I just got Gilligan, and I got Gilligan, warm up. And I was scared to death, you know. So I was only in the panel 3 weeks, and then I came on and had never played a league game. And I came on that day, and we were beating Cavan, and the first ball I got, and I didn't know what to do, so I just ran with the ball, and I was just about to lose it. And somebody pulled me down, and we got a free, and we scored the free, and it looked like it had a great impact in the game. And nothing could be further from the truth. I was about to fall anyway. So we won that game, and then the following week, the replay of the National League final was in Clonus. So we played Meath, and I made the subs again for the next week. And this was just bonus started because, you know, I didn't expect it. And again, we were struggling in the game. And with about 25 minutes to go, just after half time, the roar came up, Gilligan, warm up. And I thought, this is just amazing. Clonus was packed, and I'd never played in a crowd like it. And I came on, and I was marking Nigel Nestor. I'll never forget it. Nigel Nestor was about 6'3", and I was 5'9.5". And the first ball come, Nestor came right over the top of me, took the ball, took me and all. That was where I gathered myself up. Another ball, the same again. And we just got on top. I was on the pitch about 10, 11, 12 minutes. And all of a sudden, I looked across and I seen the substitute board coming up. And I seen Jeffrey warming up to come on. And I looked, I wonder who Jeffrey's coming on for. And I looked, it was my number. So he'd taken me off again. And this, I had never really seen this before outside of an injured player. And it was awful. And the stick I got at home, and it was terrible.
You should have pretended your hamstring was sore or something.
I know. I wish I could have. But that was the story of starting to play for Derry. But, you know, after that, I'd been in and out of the team in years. And I suppose it wasn't really until probably 07, 08 that, you know, I really sort of felt comfortable enough in myself to give a go. But I probably lost a lot of the better years from 02, 03, 04, 05. You know, in fairness, Ballinderry had been going really well, and like I have to take a bit of responsibility that I wasn't probably in the shape I needed to be in to really, really push at that stage. Again, nutrition and gym and fitness probably weren't to the fore. It was still more football, and I was probably heavier then than I am now playing. But again, at that time, I was being told, look, you're too wee, you need to bulk up. You know, so we were training and having our dinner, and I was taking these protein shakes with 1,000 calories in them to try and bulk up. But again, we didn't understand that. It was, you know, I was playing at 13 stone, which was a stone too heavier than I should have been. And, you know, that probably affected me. And I have to take responsibility for that. And, you know, my self-doubt and self-confidence, I had nobody to blame but me. And it probably wasn't until, you know, 06, 07, whenever Paddy Crozier was manager, and he had brought in John McCluskey and Fergus Connolly. Fergus is now in America doing great things. And I remember the first meeting, and me and Fergus are great friends now, but he was very blunt with me, and he said, he gave me this weight to jump, and there was this hurdle. He says, right, 30 seconds, do this. And so I jumped, and he said, right, man, I need to do this. I said, done 20, whatever. He says, right, take that dumbbell, do another. And the next time I'd done maybe 36 or 40. And he says, right, what does that tell you? And it just was like a light bulb moment for me. I says, I'm too heavy. He says, exactly. He says, you need to be leaner. And again, with that, and that was probably the thing that really gave me the push to sort of start training and use the gym, and I became a bit fanatical about it. And again, probably that was the reason why I was fit to play on with little or no injuries. Like I never missed championship matches, or I never got injured. And it was probably more so the likes of Ferguson and John McCluskey and the work they were doing at that time, and I suppose transferred in. And I'd like to think that it was a big turning point for me.
It's amazing, like, just to know that, even a man that hits the freeze and that, and the success that you've had that doubt, even when you're about to strike the freeze, kind of, but you've had just the park, like the niggle in the back of your head, and then the park and to put the ball over the bar.
What I've always had that, and it was only when I was older that I was fit to really, when you read all the sports psychology book now, and young players have so many things where the chimp paradox and all those books that talk about, the wee chimp on your shoulder and wee coping mechanisms. I had none of that. So all the stuff I'd done, I had to sort of self-learn, and about, routine, and, and I didn't really know at the time, at a certain routine for hitting freeze. I didn't really know why I'd done it. I just thought it was something that looked good at the time, but like looking back now, it was just that coping mechanism to try and think about everything bar the outcome. So it was hitting free, like, and, a lot of the times, and, like I look back to some of the games, like I remember missing a penalty in an under-21 final against Ballinderry, and we were 2 points down, time was nearly up, penalty, I got saved, it was a rubbish penalty, in the 2010 county final, Moran beat us, and I was actually playing really well that day, and we got a penalty, we were maybe 3 down, but really pushing, and I missed the penalty that day, and we lost by 1. So there was loads and loads of penalties and free kicks I missed that would have cost Ballinderry. We lost 5 county finals, and I could say hand on heart that 3 of those finals were down to me not being good enough at the job I was supposed to do. Whether missing a penalty or missing a couple of frees at different stages. And but again, I learned from that, and later on, like when I was 36, 37, 38, like that's when I was the best free kicker I ever was, or like I rarely, after the 2010 final, I just went gung-ho practicing penalties, 3 every single night after training with Mickey C and Golger Ben McKinless, and we had a competition, and if they saved, I had 3, and if they saved any of them, I had to do the forfeit, and so it was wee things like that. I was trying to be in a pressurised situation, but at training, and as I got older, I got better at coping with it, but it is hard, and nobody can tell you how to be good at them things. You have to learn them, and unfortunately, you have to make the mistakes and you have to have the disappointment. But again, you also have to have the mentality where you don't blame anybody else. I know I messed up on them finals. I know I let the boys down, and you live with that now. And I'm cool with it now. I can, it doesn't. For a long time, I lost sleep over it. Especially the 2010 final, because I know it was so important to so many of the older players, where it was probably the last tilt, and there was 2 or 3 of them players that weren't there in 2011 or 12 or 13 when we went in that wee run and won an Ulster. And had I scored that day, well, we might never went in that run, but they would have had another championship, and you're responsible for that. And it did hurt for a long time, but you eventually get over it, and you get better for the experience.
And definitely. And did you talk to anyone whenever this was going on? Because there might be people, young fellas watching this that might be feeling the same way, that are they good enough? Maybe they've been called up to county, or even just starting for their senior teams, and they're having that fear of making mistakes too, Conleith.
Yeah, no, look, and to be honest, I didn't talk to anybody, because by telling somebody that you're feeling that way, you're opening up yourself to a weakness, or was perceived to be a weakness, and that was nonsense. And it'd have been a lot easier if you had somebody and a manager that you could have opened up like that too. But it just that wasn't the way it was then. Things are very different now, thankfully, and young players do come to you with issues that are non-football related, and I think it's brilliant that way. But in terms of coping, like there was loads of people I could have spoke to, but again, I was very lucky as well in that, and at home with mummy and daddy, they would never have talked about football. Football would never have been a big topic in our house. So they would have went to some of the games, not all of them, but they went to some of the games. And like I always knew Daddy was very proud whenever anything went well, and Mummy was the same. But when I came home and I was in bad form because I had a bad game, Daddy would say, how'd you go today? And, no, not good. And he would always say, look, not to worry, look. And he would always have said something like, look, you were in there. If they'd have kicked the ball into you, and he would always have said things like that. Yeah. And then when you would have come home and I'd played really well, and, how'd you go today? And he would always say, you done right, like. And that would have been it. Yeah. So he'd never have told you, you done really well, but he would never have criticised you. He would always have blamed something else. And, it was nice. And I suppose, Daddy's dead now, coming up on 4 years in September. And he would have loved, them games last year, going to the Kilcoo games. And he loved the finals, and Mummy would have been out and they were all at the game. So whenever the final whistle had went, I remember thinking, just Daddy would have loved that, because he never would have said anything, but he would have loved people bragging me to him, and he would never have said, isn't he brilliant, or anything like that, but he always knew that he went to places after maybe a final. He'd went down to the bar because he knew people would have said, geez, your boy done brilliant today, and he would never have agreed or never said wasn't he brilliant. He would never have said that. Yeah. But I knew he was there because he wanted to listen to it, it's things like that where it's different at home now whenever he's not there, I suppose.
You have to have that support network too, don't you? And as you said, not overly praising and not overly critical as well is vital for any young footballer.
Yeah, I think so. And you see it there, I suppose, with young players and the parents who are very maybe overbearing or really pushy in terms of what they want for their child, and that's perfectly acceptable. Everybody wants the best for their child, but I think it's very important that parents take a step back and if your child's not playing, that you ask the real question as to why, and don't put it down to he doesn't like him, or me and him fell out, and I think a lot of that goes on. And I suppose I have my own son now and daughters that are playing football in Camogie, and I would try and be very, very even with them, and that if they're not on, say, well, look, what can you do different, what can you do better, don't blame everybody else, what can you do? And sometimes I don't get the response I want from them, but but again, like my wife didn't come from a football background, but now she wouldn't miss a game of any description, would travel anywhere with them, and again, it's me and Joanne's very much the yin and yang. She would always see the amazing parts of Adam and Eva, like Ellie and the Camogie, where as I would sort of trying to critique it a wee bit, and she'd be giving me the evil eye because don't you dare say that, and that's how it works. And we would try and be very much the same as I would have had at home, where nothing's ever too high, nothing's ever too low, and everything's just kept on the level, and and allow them to enjoy it and learn, and thankfully they do. They love their sport, and it's a great outlet for them.
Conleith, absolutely brilliant to talk to you. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I just want to ask about the run that Kilcoo went. So the fairy tale start the season for you, winning the league, winning the championship, Ulster, coming up against the champions. Then what happened that you think that lost you the game, and would you have changed anything looking back now?
It's very hard to tell. I actually haven't watched the game back, so I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I'll be honest. The memories I would have would be vivid enough. Look, I suppose we always knew that going to Croke Park, they were in a better position. They'd been there on numerous occasions. They'd won there on numerous occasions, and they knew every inch of it. And again, Croke Park is a very daunting place for anybody to play on, especially for the first time. Because everything's different. The sidelines are different. 45 metres out in Croke Park is a very different place than in your club ground. The gap between the 45 and the 65 is massive. If a man gets past you, you're not catching him if the game goes past you. So we knew the challenge that lay ahead, and look, we prepared really well. The preparations went brilliantly, and we couldn't complain. On the day, the game sort of ebbed and flowed a wee bit. Corofin were the sort of team that if they got a start on you early, they could have ripped you to shreds. And we concentrated on trying to get a good start, and we got that. We get in at half time, and everything was kind of going the way we'd want it. And obviously after half time, it went downhill a wee bit. But in terms of the rally, we probably needed the game. It went 10 minutes of extra time, and the amount of energy we had to expend to get the game into a draw. I suppose we probably didn't know, that it just took its toll as much, and obviously in extra time it did. And look, I suppose there's loads of wee things, and you touched on half time and things you might have done different in changing rooms and stuff. But look, there really is no point dwelling on that. You have to take the game for what it was, and you look back at the wee things. And I will watch it again, but I just haven't been ready for it yet. And you look at the learnings, and you look at different things that happen, and you say, well, if you were in that position again, what would you do differently, and how would you learn it? And you do that collectively. It's not something that one person or two persons can do. It's something you would have to do as a unit, because when you get to Croke Park, you need everybody playing really well. Like, no team goes to Croke Park, and underperforms and gets a result. It just doesn't happen there. It's just such an unforgiving place, and the effort the Kilcoo players give, was a credit. Really, really disappointing that it fell a wee bit short. But a lot of the players will look back on that, and it will build a lot of steam, a lot of character in them, for two reasons. Number one, that they can go back from the dead and really push possibly the greatest club team of all time to the absolute pin of their collar. And look, the secondly is, they were defeated, and they took it in the spirit in which you have to take defeat. And for those two things, we can be incredibly proud of what they've done.
You're not filling me full of hope here for the rest of Down football, Colin, to tell you the truth. But no, congratulations on the Ulster win and getting to the final as well. It was, fantastic. And as you said, just a couple of decisions maybe where you were harshly treated, I think, with the send off as well. But well done. You've done the county proud as well. I look forward to seeing your matches this year, and all the best with the. I suppose the training steps up now.
Yeah, no. Look, once you're now into the 12th. So you're now down. There's a countdown now to the 28th when we get back out onto the pitch, and and hopefully, come Monday, Thursday of next week, and maybe the government or the Croke or Ulster Council will announce that the social distancing might be reduced to 1 metre, which would make a big difference. Maybe you can train in bigger numbers, which would make a huge amount of difference, because the amount of people it would take to get training going in groups of 10 even, it would make life very, very difficult. But look, whatever it is, we'll adapt. The one thing, to be fair, that the GAA has done really well is they've adapted. They cancelled football very quickly, and now they've turned on the tap equally as quick. And I think when the history of COVID is written, the GAA will have done themselves a great service in terms of what they've done for the communities, particularly in Ulster.
Oh, definitely. Well done to them. And hopefully now, as you said, light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get back playing football and back on the pitches. Conleith, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the call. I'll see you over the coming weeks, hopefully. And I'll get you back on again.
No problem. Anytime.
That's absolutely brilliant, Conleith. Thank you so much. Talk to you later. Bye.